Senator, this has just come over the wires, and Fox News has confirmed there's now a growing possibility in the House tonight that in order to get the final votes for passage, that there might be a tweaking going on of the Boehner bill. So in other words, I guess that confirms there are not enough votes, so perhaps some members are saying that if this happened or this happened, we might be able to support it. Would that be your interpretation?
Well, you know, if they tweak it right on up to cut, cap, and balance, I know that they can get 234 votes.
We know that already.
Yeah, just keep tweaking. It's fine with me. You know, the interesting thing is, Sean, you mentioned we have 4 Republicans. I think we have at least 10, maybe 14 Republicans in the Senate that are going to oppose the Boehner bill.
All right, well, we've got really, the ones that I've confirmed are you, Vitter, Mike Lee, Jim DeMint.
We signed a letter, but we privately know of at least probably 10 total, maybe 14, who will vote no on the Boehner plan. The Boehner plan never balances. It's going to add $7 to $8 trillion to the debt. It doesn't change the course we're on. Yeah. An interesting analogy, you know, is to look at this is to say, if we froze spending, people can understand that. If we didn't spend any more money next year than we spent this year, and we did it for 10 years, Washington would count that as a $9.5 trillion cut. Why? Because we're going to add $9.5 trillion to the debt over the next 10 years. So when they tell you they're going to cut $1 trillion, it's from proposed increases in the debt. It isn't meaningful.
I want to put a highlight on this because you have now signed on to the Connie Mack Penny plan in the House. And,
right.
All right. And it's a very simple, understandable plan. And for example, next year we're going to spend, correct me if I'm wrong, anywhere between 7.5 and 8% more, the federal government will, than they're spending this year, correct?
Right.
And the same thing the year after.
Spending's going up at about 7% a year.
7 or 8% a year for as far as the eye can see that we know, right?
Correct.
All right. So what you're saying is let's look at the 2011, how much we spent in 2011, which is what, $3.7 trillion?
Right.
All right. You're saying freeze it, and you support this. Freeze it
or cut it by 1%, which is a very small amount.
Right. All right. So what I mean is we're going to not increase it 7.5%, but we're going to freeze it every year for 6 years, and then every year cut it just 1% from this year's level, and do that for 6 years, and then 18% of GDP, which is historic, and then you get to a balanced budget. Is that right?
Yeah, and what's amazing about this is they want to call us radical and extreme because we're talking about saving 1 penny on the dollar. What American family is not having to cut back at least 1 penny on every dollar because of family members unemployed, because of inflation, because of bad economic times? Can the government not cut 1 penny out of every dollar? I mean, It's crazy that we are called extreme because we want to cut government by 1 penny. But it also illustrates the fuzzy math up here. When they talk about cutting in the Boehner plan or they talk about cutting in the Reid plan, they're cutting from proposed increases. The Penny plan by Connie Mack and myself over in the Senate would cut real 1%. You would actually spend less next year than you spent this year, and that would be a real cut.
It's amazing just by not increasing spending. Basically, it was saying freeze government spending at 2011 levels for 6 years and cut 1% a year, and we'll have a balanced budget for our kids and grandkids. That seems pretty simple to me. Let me ask you this. All that's been going on here, what frustrates me the most is after cut, cap, and balance passed, which I really applaud the House for doing. The House has done a lot of good work here. And there's a lot of angry conservatives, Tea Party members in the country tonight, because they're asking the same question I am. The president's not passed a plan. The Democrats have not passed a plan. The president hasn't even put his plan on paper. Why have they been negotiating against themselves? Why? Why didn't they just pass it and go like this and say, your move?
Well, you're right. That's exactly the point here. We passed cut, cap, and balance. We never got a counter move by the other side, and now we're competing with ourselves by passing another plan. Here's the other problem for conservative members in the House. The Tea Party doesn't want this. The conservative Republicans in the country, the grassroots doesn't want this. If you vote for the Boehner plan, it's not going to become law. It truly is dead on arrival over here. There's going to be an amalgamation between the Boehner plan and the Reid plan, and they will force something through with a lot of Democrat votes and a few Republican votes.
Right, so then, wait a minute.
By
So
voting to send the Boehner plan over here, you're abdicating what you stood for in the last election.
All right, so then tell me, you think you know what the final outcome is by what I'm listening to you say here. What are you telling people tonight you think ultimately the final outcome then is going to be?
The Boehner plan's not going to be law, so why lose your principles by voting for it? It's going to be an amalgamation or a combination of the Boehner and Reid plan. It will pass with 100 Democrats in the House. They won't need the conservatives anymore, and it'll pass with all the Democrats in the Senate and some of the Republicans. But it's going to be done through scare tactics like everything else around here. At the very end, everybody gets worried and says, oh, we must pass it or the end of the world. We don't care what's in it anymore. We just want to wash our hands. We want to be done with it.
Yeah, isn't that how the president passed the stimulus? He told the country we faced a catastrophe. Same with the continuing resolution. Same with bailing out banks and car companies, insurance companies, and Wall Street. We always get down to this panic, this artificial deadline, and the country's worked up into a frenzy. It's unbelievable, isn't it? It's so predictable.
And one of the reasons we get all the way to this deadline is because we don't do our work properly. We haven't had a budget in 2 years. Harry Reid hasn't produced a budget. They don't have committee hearings. I grew up in high school and in junior high, I learned about how a bill was created. You remember the little song from Sesame Street or whatever? It's like it was supposed to go to a committee, be acted upon in a committee, go to the full House and vote. None of that happens around here. We sit around from week to week and they produce no appropriations bills, no budget. When they had their own president's budget, it lost 97-0 because no Democrats supported their own budget.
Senator Rand Paul, we're going to continue to follow the Connie Mack penny plan, which I think is a good idea. And maybe the Democrats are doing the conservatives a favor by saying no, because now they have to produce a bill. All right, good to see you. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
And we do have some breaking developments here. We've just heard Fox News confirming